By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify perfect square numbers and determine the square root of a perfect square number. Perfect square numbers are also called perfect squares. So let's try to explore what perfect squares are. Perfect squares are numbers that are the result of a number multiplied by itself. Example, if we are going to multiply 0 by itself, the product is 0. And so we can call or we can consider 0 as perfect square number. Another is if we are going to multiply 1 by itself, the result is 1. And so this result, 1, is considered perfect square number. The same thing, if we are going to multiply 2 by itself, we will get a product of 4, and so 4 is considered perfect square number. Ganun din, if we are going to multiply 3 by itself, the result is 9, so 9 is considered a perfect square number, and so on. So 16 is a perfect square number because that is obtained by multiplying 4 by itself. Same is true with 25. That was obtained after we multiply 5 by itself, and so on. So all of these numbers from 0, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, these are examples of perfect square numbers. And the concept of this can also be applied in decimal. So just like this, if we are going to multiply 0.1 by itself, which will give us the result of 0.01, then we can say that 0.01 is a perfect square number in decimal form nga lang. And also, if we are going to multiply 0.2 by itself, the result is 0.04. And then we can consider 0.04 as perfect square number. Same is true for 0.03 times itself. The result is 0.09, and so 0.09 is considered a perfect square number. The same is true with 4, and also we have 0.5, 0.6. So all of these numbers here at the right, they are considered perfect square numbers because they were obtained after we multiply a number by itself. And the concept is not only limited for a whole number for decimals but also in fraction. So suppose we are going to multiply 1/2 by itself. So we have 1/2 times 1/2, the result is 1/4. And so we can say that 1/4 is a perfect square number. The same thing if we are going to multiply 1/3 by itself, which will give us a product of 1/9. So that 1/9 is considered perfect square number. The same is true with 2/5 times 2/5, which will give us a product of 4/25. So 4/25 is considered perfect square number. And lastly, we have 3/4 multiplied by itself. We can get a product of 9/16. And so we can say that 9/16 is also a perfect square. If you notice, even if this is in fraction form and these are in decimal forms, we can still see the same pattern. That is true all the time. That is how easy we can identify a perfect square numbers. For our next lesson, we are going to familiarize perfect square numbers because we are going to use the concept of that in identifying square root of perfect square numbers. So let's try to proceed. We have square root. So what do you mean by square root? Square root of a number is simply finding out what number was multiplied by itself to get that number. So just like I said, we need the concept of perfect square number to identify the square root because they are the reverse operation. Okay, so squaring a number, its opposite is finding the root, okay, or finding the square root. Example, if we are going to find the square root of 0, the result is 0. Or the square root of 0 is 0 because 0 times 0 is 0. while square root of 1 is equal to 1 because 1 times 1 is 1. Square root of 16 is equal to 4 because 4 times 4 is 16. While square root of 25 is equal to 5 because 5 times 5 is 25. Square root of 81 is equal to 9 because 9 times 9 is 81. And also, square root of 0.04 is equal to 0.2 because 0.2 times 0.2 is equal to 0.4. The same is true, square root of 0.36 is equal to 0.6 because 0.6 times 0.6 is equal to 0.36. Same thing if we talk about fraction. We have square root of 1/4 is equal to 1/2 because 1/2 times 1/2 is equal to 1/4. While square root of 9/16 is equal to 3/4 because 3/4 times 3/4 is equal to 9/16. So as easy as that. So if you are familiar of perfect square numbers, then you can easily identify the square root of perfect square number. So just like this, we know that 81 is a perfect square number because 81 is the product of multiplying 9 by itself. And so, we can say that the square root of 81 is 9. Okay, ganun din dito. So if we are going to consider 0.36, although 0.36 is in decimal form, but we may think that 0.6 times 0.6 is also equal to 0.36, and therefore the square root of 0.36 is 6 or 0.6. Ganun lang yun, parang baligtaran. Okay? So to try your understanding, try to answer these exercises. Identify whether the given number is a perfect square or not. If the number is a perfect square, then determine or compute its square root. Okay, example, 16. For example, the given number is 16. So 16 is a perfect square and so its square root is equal to 4. Okay? So that's all for this lesson, and just wait for the next lesson about cube root. Thank you so much for listening and have a nice day.